Hello, loves. Hello, hello, hills here from the blue flame and back in San Francisco. Ooh, what a journey this month of May has been, both for me physically and energetically, and I think for all of us. May is one of the months that I have felt for this year that has a lot going on, right? We had very beginning of May, Neptune starting to come in to Aries. Now, as May is coming to a close, we have Saturn doing the same. And actually, at the time of this recording, we're just a few hours from the moment that Saturn will make its turn into the fiery sign of I am. And I talked a bit more about that in the previous update, which you can find on my channel, and I'll link it at the end of this update. Today, however, as we are in the dark moon phase, as the sun in Gemini is getting ready to have the moon in Gemini come and meet it, we are going to talk about the Gemini New Moon on the 26th of May. It's occurring at 8:02 p.m. in the Pacific time zone. And something called the Aldebaran Gateway, which rounds out the week on the 31st. It will find its exactness, which is the sun exactly conjunct the silver gateway star of Aldebaran, also known as the Eye of the Bull. So let's start. Whew. Let's start with this very, very, very Gemini new moon, shall we? So we are just coming now as we move through the 24th, 25th, and into the 26th, the day of the new moon. We are coming out of the Pleiadian portal, and you may have noticed that we have multiple energies that we're working with throughout this kind of end of May cycle. We have what I like to call the three A's, the triple A conjunctions, where we find Sun, Soul, first meeting with the third eye of Medusa in Perseus's hand, her severed head, Algol, which is still currently conjunct Uranus, and that is at 27 degrees or so of Taurus. So first we come through that solar conjunction. And then just as the sun tips over into Gemini, it makes the exact conjunction at 0 degrees of Gemini to the great central star Alcyon of the Pleiades. There's Algol, Alcyon. Then, as we come to the end of May, usually somewhere around the 30th, 31st, the sun makes its annual conjunction exactly to the largest star in the constellation Taurus, Aldebaran, which is at 10 degrees of Gemini. So when we move through this new moon in Gemini, we are almost exactly halfway between that 0 degree Sun Alcyon conjunction and that 10 degree Aldebaran Sun conjunction. The Sun and Moon will actually be at 6 degrees of Gemini during this new moon. So just tipped a little to the side of towards the Aldebaran energies, okay? Now, I talked in the last video about the kind of trickstery or the dual nature of Alcyon and the Pleiadian energies, that birthing energy, that revitalizing, that springing forward energy that they hold, and also as part of the cycles of life, death, life, death, death, life. They also are the death doulas. They help us connect to the continuous nature of the material realm and the spiritual realm. Okay? As we come to Aldebaran, Aldebaran is known as the Silver Gateway, and many believe it is one of the final points of embarkation, or yeah, embarkation. I like that one. Before a soul begins a journey in the earthly realm. So there are a lot of different way stations out. Another A, Arcturus is a big one. This is kind of the grand central station, if you will, of the soul journey. After the life review has gone through, after the life plan has experienced itself, and we are ready to have an incarnation, to begin an incarnation, Aldebaran is a portal for the soul, kind of a, a brief pit stop, if you will, before coming into that earthly incarnation, before coming into the womb of the mother. Now, let me feel for a minute here. What? We could look at this new moon as that kind of bringing the soul mind into union with the human mind that occurs as the soul is readying to make union with the human form that it will take in that lifetime. New moons, if we remember, have a birthing energy. It is coming through the void space and into, from that moment forward, the moon will be growing. And we can look at this as the mother's belly growing as the baby is gestating, okay? In this time period, when the fetus is still in the womb, the human form, the vessel is still forming, the soul dips in and out. Sometimes it spends more time in the womb, sometimes it spends less. It depends on the resonance between that human vessel and the soul and what work they need to do in order to unite, right? So Aldebaran, in many ways, is one of the places that it's very easy for the soul to maintain contact with the fetus without actually being incarnate. Now, this is kind of a funny update for us, right? Usually I talk a lot about the astrology and we get really deep into squares and trines, and we're going to do some of that. But this is laying the foundation for us, okay? We are being invited to experience a bit more of what these stellar dimensions represent, what it means to be a soul having a human experience. And that's what all this frequency that we've been navigating since this update started is helping us to do. Even if, and this is a lot of Gemini energy right now, and I'm going to get to more of that in a minute, we are having a hard time wrapping our minds, the ego mind. And I don't say that like a bad word. I say that as the human mind, the processor that takes in information. And this is our sight, our sound, our feeling. Everything is processed in the mental realm. And as we are expanding the neural activity, as we are coming into an elevated or an accentuated bridging, looping between the two planes, the two hemispheres of our brain, the capacity of our mental body to process stimuli increases. So we could think of that as we can see new colors, we can taste new flavors, we can feel new sensations. What we saw before looks different. And if anyone has ever taken psilocybin, you might know a bit of what I'm talking about. That moment when all of a sudden, all the colors and all the sounds and everything else, any psychedelic, but mushrooms, psilocybin is really, because it's so elemental, very good at this particular enhancement. So one of the ways that I'm being guided to talk about this particular lunation and the Aldebaran gateway that it's opening to is that we are receiving an activation should we choose to accept it, because we can block that. We can block that. Sometimes it's easier to block than others, but we have free will while we're here on this plane. But if we open to allow more of the threading, more of the light, the neural network to come online, the energies that are flowing, the current that is connected to this Gemini new moon can help us to see more, to hear more, to bring more of our shamanic visioning online. That's one of the words used to describe this sort of psychedelic experience. But this is an experience where we are able to maintain contact with our rationality, with our consciousness, with the reality of multiple planes all at one moment. Feel this, right? Saturn is moving into Aries. First ingress, and really closely conjunct to Neptune. Neptune at 1 degree of Aries, Saturn coming in at 0. In July, both of them are going to go retrograde and start spinning back into Pisces before they make another conjunction. They're doing this dance really tightly conjunct one another, though. They are going to stay within orb for the entirety of the rest of this year and into the early parts of 2026. This is part of the massive transformational energy of this cycle, of this part of the journey that we are on, that we call 2025 to 2027 in this moment. So why do I say that this Gemini energy is so connected to this enhancement and expansion of our mental capacities, of our mental body? Gemini is the twins. Here we can feel that polarity, that dual nature, the two hemispheres of the brain. It is ruled by the planet Mercury, the messenger. Mercury, of course, is also known as Thoth, as Hermes, as Enoch. All of these energies are the same being, the same energetic template. It is that remembering that our communication occurs interdimensionally. That means that while our focal conscious point may be in the third dimension or the fifth dimension, our actual beingness moves through multiple dimensions at once. When we talk about the Hathars, an interdimensional being or beingness, what we're talking about is a state of being, a state of consciousness that moves seamlessly through multiple dimensions, all at the same moment, is constant translational. transitional energy. Okay? So we are multidimensional beings that have an interdimensional connection. An extra dimensional being to humans would be a being that exists with its consciousness focal point in a dimension that encapsulates our dimension. We are getting very, 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 very deep into some of the more esoteric weeds here. And I think what we're doing as well is a little bit of a toe dip into where we will be going on the 26th in our Gemini New Moon circle over at Circle in the members portal. So if that calls to you, links below, all the things, please do come and join us in the community over there. It would be an honor to welcome you. So Gemini helps us come into contact. It is a template holder for bringing that duality, that poles apart, into union with one another. Notice that the symbol for Gemini is kind of like the Roman numeral 2. It's showing us that those two aspects are meant to be connected. Even the twins themselves are holding hands, they're touching, they are united when we look at the constellation. The moon and the sun, as I said, are at 6 degrees of Gemini on this new moon. They are making an exact square to Persephone, another dual-natured energy. Persephone is the goddess of the spring and also the queen of the underworld. And this is in Pisces, and here again we have the two fish uniting. The two fish uniting. We're seeing that water and that air. So we're coming into contact with the truth that as more of our mental body comes online, as we experience more awareness, we remember that the mental body and the emotional body are seamlessly interconnected. This is part of our interdimensionality, even. So all of these energies are working in concert. All of these energies are working in concert. And then we have Jupiter. And then we have Jupiter. Jupiter on the day of this new moon at 26 degrees of Gemini is exactly conjunct the Magdalena asteroid at 26 degrees of Gemini, exactly across the wheel from the galactic center. Now, Jupiter makes everything bigger, and Jupiter is getting ready to move into Cancer. Jupiter is going to move into Cancer at the beginning of June, in fact. There will be a conjunction with the sun. So, Jupiter and Magdalena and Gemini. Who is the Magdalena? What does the Magdalena represent? Greater creative empowerment. Coming into the true self, wholeness. Mary is a word that means beloved of. It comes from ancient Egypt, actually. It is a word, a title that denotes a priestess in the lineage of Isis. During Jupiter and Magdalena's conjunction, they will be across the wheel from the galactic center, the center of our Milky Way. We are expanding our access to the many, many planes and realms of this galaxy, to the creative potential of our beingness here, and to the truth, Sagittarius truth, that we are here to harness our capacity to create. Mental plane, heart plane, sacral, sacrum plane. And we are coming into contact with that toroidal trinity, the electromagnetic field of the heart, the electromagnetic field of the mind, and the electromagnetic field of the sacral sacrum area, and the ways in which they unite, bringing all of the elemental beings that make up our physicality into a little bit of energetic foreplay is the way that I'm hearing it. We'll play with that. Why not? Creation magic, of course, is also sex magic. This is one of the things that Magdalena and Yeshua were all about, right? This is part of the Isis priestess training. However, it is not the whole of it. It is one form of creation magic. But what we are truly here to do, to remember, has more to do with creating within ourselves that union. Now, this opposition, this dance across the wheel between Jupiter and Magdalena, expanding our access to our interdimensionality from the galactic center, is also making a loose but pretty freaking tight grand cross with the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo. Wholeness, perfecting Virgo. It is not perfectionism, it is perfecting. Feel the difference in the resonance between those two words. And the North Node in Pisces, we are taking from where we have been this idea of what it means to be perfect. All these rules and laws that we have placed upon ourselves about what it means to be a spiritual being, what it means to be a human being, what it means to blah, 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 right? These are all mental constructs of the human mind. Bringing them forward, those ones that are true, that are part of us, bringing them forward into the new, letting go of all the hurt and trauma and pain, but acknowledging that it's there with that North Node in Pisces. Now, there is a fun little piece as well with Medusa in retrograde in Scorpio at 25 degrees. Across the wheel pretty tightly from Uranus and Algol, right? I talked about that in the last video. Medusa is square to Pallas Athena in Aquarius. Pallas Athena in Aquarius is also trine to Medusa and to Magdalena and Jupiter. All of this is tightening as we get to the Aldebaran gateway. And I mentioned in the last update that I'm going to be bringing through a masterclass for our members group within the inner sanctum with Sekhmet Kali, who is actually at 10 degrees of Pisces, working with Persephone. Sekhmet and Kali, these whole sisters, and Medusa and Pallas, Athena, these separated, kind of like the hemispheres of our mind, states of being. As I say it and it starts to come in, we are going to really get to play with that energy. And I believe that we're going to be using the energies of the Aldebaran gateway to help us really anchor through the places within us where we are afraid of our power, our creative potential, of our sexual natures, if that's a thing that we are afraid of the non-gendered aspect that is our soul, where we are afraid of the feminine aspects of ourselves or afraid of the masculine aspects of ourselves, where we are carrying deep wounds regarding our mothers or our fathers. All of these are part of that wedge that separates Medusa and Athena. Okay. Let me feel. We have gone into some very deep territory today, and I would love to hear in the comments what tickled for you as we explored it. As we come more fully into Saturn in Aries as well, we are likely to experience some triggering, especially this next couple of months, June, definitely into July. I said that May was one of those months this year that whew, there was a lot going on. And I touch into July, yeah, it's like touching a live wire. July could be very interesting for us. Now, of course, this is the month that Uranus is going to move into Gemini. It's also the month that Neptune and Saturn are going to go retrograde in Aries. So there's a lot. Whew. And it's all happening like right around that Sirius Sol conjunction as well. There's a lot. There's a lot in the field there. Oh, hang on. There's something coming. Let's give it some space and see. Hmm. Okay. Sekhmet wants me to remind you that she, during this new moon, will be exactly sextile. She is at 6 degrees of Leo. She will be exactly sextile this new moon as well. The lioness in Leo. I mean, yum, right? Can we allow ourselves to feel the bloodlust that was part of her story and the releasing of that is part of her story and the revelry that is part of her story? Can we feel the mother that is part of her story and the queen seated in her power that is part of her story? And can we feel within each and every one of us that courageous heart, that bold-hearted energy that is required to find our innate and remembered empowerment? Sekhmet is also exactly in conjunct Persephone, in case you were wondering. Another queen. Please do come over to Circle. There will be links below. I shared a really lovely Palladium portal activation within the community hub. That is the open area of the Circle platform, the Blue Flame on Circle. Within the inner sanctum, as I said, we will have our new moon circle on the 26th. And we'll also have this really, the way that all the energies for this Sekhmet, Kali, Medusa, Athena, unified beingness masterclass workshop is coming through. It feels so yummy, and I'm really excited to share it with all who are called to come on in to the inner sanctum to experience it. With that, as always, in the always, with so much and many loves. from the all dimensions and beyond the beyond. Thank you.